Hey guys, Michael J. Crawford here, and before we get into today's video, I absolutely have to address this one comment from the first part of the series in the prologue. NV9000 left the comment, didn't even watch, dislike, just because on annoying loud music. And I realized, NV, if I hope you see this, I truly do. You're right. I'm truly deeply saddened that you missed out on the first part of the series because of this. So I have corrected my mistake and have a new intro dedicated to you.
NV9000, I am so sorry I hurt your sensitive virgin ears. To hurt you and your feelings confirms my deepest, darkest fears. I am truly sorry if I came across as way too pushy. I simply did not realize that you were such a pussy.
So before we get started today, I need to address a mistake that I actually made in my prior video. And I'm kind of surprised none of you guys actually caught this and pointed it out, but I happened to have the video on because I saw a comment, I clicked on the link, and it took me to the video, and I was just letting it play in the background while I was thinking of a response to the comment, and I realized that I made a miscalculation as far as the ages of Son and Rachel Garrett. Rachel Garrett's age perfectly fine. Assuming if the star date at the beginning of the show is accurate to the original series star date system, then Rachel Garrett must be 111 years old in the episode Yesterday's Enterprise. Son, I was incorrect. I for some reason, even though I even read it during the video, I said that, according to groups like Screen Rant, the actual date of Section 31 is April 17, 2324. And then I started saying 2364, adding 40 years to it. Now, that's not just an arbitrary number, because in that same article, and I was probably glancing at it when I said this, when I was reading, it then says this is set 40 years before Star Trek The Next Generation, which begins in 2364. So I apologize for that. I was wrong. However, Son would still be ridiculously old because he would still be 110 years old. So basically about the same age that Rachel Garrett would have to be. And so pick one. One of these two people is 110 years old, apparently. But whatever. There is one other thing I want to address before we get into part 2 of the review. And that is a comment left by, and I apologize if I'm butchering your name, BenJarn5873. And Ben says, the problem is, and this has been the problem since the first Jar Jar Abrams movie came out way back in Not 9, is that there's so many rich storytelling opportunities within established canon that to disregard established canon is just a demonstration of intellectual laziness. No Star Trek made since 2009, except Lower Decks, has been made by actual Star Trek fans. And it's such a darn shame. Sorry, I had to change the word there. So I want to say, first and foremost, let me say this. I agree with your general criticism here. I do think that the fact that they ignore so much stuff that's already in canon and just try to completely branch off into something unique and different. Look, this is a franchise. Unique and different isn't what franchises do. The reason people go to Marvel movies isn't to see something different than all the prior Marvel movies. They know what to expect. The brand name has a certain package, and that's what you expect to see. When Marvel started trying to change things up a little bit after Avengers Endgame, that's when things started to fall apart for Marvel. Similarly, with Star Wars, you have more experimentation going on in the Star Wars universe since Kathleen Kennedy took over Lucasfilm. And this has become disastrous for Lucasfilm in that the box office returns on the last couple of movies weren't that great. And in fact, Solo lost money. And the Disney Plus shows are having more and more diminishing returns because of basically the same kinds of problems. Really crappy writing, people trying to branch out into doing stories that really just don't fit in the Star Wars universe. So I agree with you that this is a problem, and I think it goes way beyond just Star Trek. This is a problem that we're seeing throughout nerd culture right now. As far as sci-fi fantasy type franchises, we're seeing this over and over and over. But, and please, you may be new to the channel, Ben, but and people that know me probably already have some idea what I'm going to say. Please, and I absolutely mean this from the bottom of my heart, please stop calling J.J. Abrams Jar Jar. Not because I'm trying to say he's the world's greatest filmmaker. He's not, clearly. When you stoop down to the level of simply leveling a personal insult, it truly makes you appear to be lacking in the intellectual capability of leveling a real argument. Not only that, it gives them the ability, right, and in fact justification to simply dismiss out of hand everything you just said. If I am J.J. Abrams and I see this comment, I just see, oh, Jar Jar Abrams, I'm done. I'm not interested. It's kind of like the joke that I threw at the beginning of this, although that was a real comment from the first video, where someone says, oh, I didn't like the intro music, so I didn't watch. Okay, well, that's what you just did there. For anybody who would actually want to engage you in a discussion about this, they see Jar Jar Abrams and they check out. They're done. You're just a hater. And they're absolutely right to do so. You do not need to stoop to personal attack or insult in order to properly criticize any of this stuff. You will notice that while I did blame Michelle Yeoh for some of the problems with Section 31 in my prologue video, I did not attack Michelle Yeoh personally. I didn't make fun of her name. I didn't make fun of her culture. I didn't make fun of her personally in any way, shape, or form. I simply commented on what happened with Section 31 and what she brought to Section 31, or more accurately, what she didn't bring. The other thing I do want to address from your comment, and I know I'm going on quite a bit here, but I think this is important stuff for us as fans to think about, is that you mentioned at the end that no Star Trek since 2009, with the exception of Lower Decks, has been made by actual Star Trek fans. I know that you mean well with that comment, but the last thing we want is Star Trek fans making Star Trek. Now, yes, Mike McMahon did a great job with Lower Decks. I am a huge defender of that show. For the people that hate Lower Decks, I don't know what you're looking at, because I think Lower Decks is hilarious and it's fun to watch. And it is clearly written by a fan. All that being said, you know what wasn't written or produced or directed by fans? Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. And Star Trek VI, right? Nicholas Meyer and Harve Bennett were not Star Trek fans at all prior to making Star Trek II. But the difference between Nicholas Meyer and, say, J.J. Abrams or Rian Johnson or one of these guys is not that Nicholas Meyer is a fan of the franchise. It's that Nicholas Meyer understands what it's like to make something that is a part of a franchise. So Nicholas Meyer and Harve Bennett studied what Star Trek, the original series, was all about and kind of boiled it down to, okay, we have the Space Navy, we have Kirk is, he compares him to Horatio Hornblower, all this stuff, and that built up into what became the story of Star Trek II, where they're basically saying, well, what if a swashbuckling hero was turning 50? And, a lot of people think Star Trek II is just an action movie about Khan seeking revenge, but Star Trek II is an incredibly deep and intelligent film, and it was made by people who didn't give a rip about Star Trek. So, I know this is long-winded, but I just want to make this clear. Do not demand that fans make the product. Yes, I absolutely believe that I could rewrite even something as bad as Section 31 and make it into a good show. I truly do believe that. I wish there was some way I could get the ear of Alex Kurtzman just long enough to convince him to put me in his writer's room. I would absolutely love to do that. And yes, I am a lifetime fan of Star Trek. But most of the time, when fans write products that are part of a franchise that they may adore, well, it's called fan fiction for a reason. And don't get me wrong, some fan fiction can be entertaining and fun to watch, but it's still fan fiction. And that's not what we need. What we need is good storytelling, good stories, good characters. And we're not getting that right now. And we need to keep pushing for it, but we do not need to stoop down to the level of personal attack. And we certainly don't need to demand that they put some fanboy in charge, because then we're going to get absolute crap. We may get crap that offers fan service, but that's all it's going to offer. And in fact, I do think, and I truly believe this, I know there are a lot of people out there that think that Picard Season 3 was like the greatest thing ever. However, I don't think it's going to age well at all. I think that as the glowing fun of seeing the cast of the Next Generation or the Enterprise D or any of the other memberberry type stuff that they throw into that particular production, once the glow of the excitement of the dopamine hits, once that wears off, I think people are going to realize, oh, it's not even a very good story, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. And in fact, if just like what you said, if you could use canonical Star Trek ideas, races, etc., in a much better way than what they did. I mean, the idea of the Borg employing the shapeshifters from the Dominion makes no sense whatsoever when you start to think about it. And the shapeshifters themselves make no sense whatsoever. Why is it the Worf is able to stab to death someone who can change shape like they can? We've already seen on Deep Space Nine what the shapeshifters are capable of. And dying by stab wound is not something that they are capable of. So I do think that we need better writers, better producers, etc. I hope that Alex Kurtzman either turns the ship around, or that as Skydance takes over, that they find someone who will turn the ship around. Because I do love Star Trek. I always have, and I probably always will. Yes, Section 31 is a hot mess, but I would say Section 31 is like that one relative that we don't like to talk about. Oh, sure, they're embarrassing. We don't want to talk to them. We don't even want to look at them. But they're still family, so you love them. All right, let's get back to the review. So, of course, last time we learned that the dating of this film makes it so that at least one of the human characters is 110 years old, but whatever. Now we continue on to see what looks like and sounds, frankly, like a rejected set and song from The Fifth Element. I mean, those were two different songs, right? Because they sure sounded like they were the same song, just at different parts. Anyway, we have Georgiou walking around the bar and then sitting down, and she is then approached by this character. Now, I'm sure many of you recognize this person as being from the planet Charon, from the episode from the original series, Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. And you might be thinking, well, gee, Salty, I mean, you're being a little harsh, aren't you? Putting 3 turds up just because the guy showed up? Well, yeah, because, you know, all the Charonians are dead. And even if this takes place before the original series, as the star date would imply, it's only very briefly before the original series, and we find out that Lokai and Beale are the only Charonians left, and they've been chasing each other around for some 50,000 years. So it's highly unlikely that another Sharonian would just happen to be alive and casually interacting with people just before that event. Now, I've heard people suggest that, hey, it's not like they explicitly said that all the Sharonians are dead, right?
No sapient life forms registering at all.
There is no evidence of natural disaster, yet there are vast numbers of unburied corpses in all cities.
All the people are dead.
All dead, Captain.
Okay, sure, but maybe Spock was just using hyperbole. I'm sure some Sharonians were still alive, right?
They have annihilated each other. Totally.
Well, I mean, does Spock really mean total annihilation?
My people? All dead? Yes, Commissioner. All of them.
Okay, I get the point, but, I mean, no chance?
No one alive?
None at all, sir.
Now, yes, I'm having a little fun with how they drove the point home in the original series, but that actually is the point of my being so upset about them including someone from the planet Charon in this. Because to do so, to include a Sharonian, to show that at least one Sharonian survived the massacres, is to completely undermine the point of Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, which is probably one of the most profound and poignant shows to ever deal with the destructive power of hate head on and show that it doesn't matter which side you're on. Lokai and Beale were both equally wrong in their quest for what they perceived as justice. And by the way, I do also think it's kind of funny that Virgil is the same race, if you will, of Beale, the ones that were the oppressors of the two. Just interesting to note. So Virgil introduces Giorgio, who is posing as a French woman, whatever, to Alok, who is going to be our leader of this ragtag team from Section 31. And we get this.
Alok Sahar, Madame Véronique Dufranc. Madame Dufranc normally does business by appointment.
I'd like to make an appointment.
Oh, the gentleman would like to make an appointment.
Now.
Now, Madame.
Impossible.
Impossible.
So again, let me stress, this is the hero of our show. Eating an eyeball. Now, I do understand that cannibalism is nothing new for Georgiou. If you watched her on Discovery, you knew that she had a fanciful habit of eating kelpians when she was the Empress. And yeah, I know it's not exactly cannibalism because they're technically different species, but come on, you know what I'm talking about. And this is just absolutely disgusting. So, and I really don't understand what the point of this is, because we saw in Discovery that Georgiou had kind of softened up a bit, especially, she joined Section 31. She was helping Starfleet and, in fact, helping the crew of the Discovery. Sure, she had her own selfish intentions a lot of the time, but she wasn't eating people. But now she's back to eating people. And so I guess she's pure evil, right? Nope, she's the good guy, and there's no explanation for why she's the good guy. I mean, really. And this is where getting to when I was talking about rewriting stuff. Okay, the big change for this particular scene is going to come up when Alok explains to Georgiou what their plan is, and we'll get into that in the next episode. But for right now, man, looking at this picture, I really... I'm having a hankering for some hard-boiled eggs for some reason. So I think I'm going to have to go because I'm just, Daddy's got to eat. Oh, that's good. That's good.
Well, Salty was watching a show called Section 31. And frankly, he was thankful he did not own a gun. Then he realized His math from yesterday was wrong, so he admitted his mistake, then decided time to move on. After some Fifth Element song took him by surprise, he realized it was time to cook up some eyes. Oh, eyeballs are tasty, I know that it might seem untrue, but you just have not lived till you try human eyeball stew. Well, I have to admit, I could eat this yummy stew until dawn. But first I have to take a minute to thank our supporters on Patreon. Jason Rogers, Sean Gaclone, Twinkle Teaches, Leighton Kresman, Lee Crystal, Laura Finney, Thomas Potts, 47 Yorktown, Rule Hefchi, Hadaisoki, Firetail, T Stoney, Indie Tiger, Captain Fandom Nerd. If you are ever in Tennessee, I will save you a big bowl of stew.